All right, today we're going to talk about how you transform a function without actually knowing what the function is and not even caring what the function is. So what we got to look at is, I'm giving you this graph. Here's the graph. It's kind of a unique graph that you guys have never seen before. And I'm going to tell you that that's my f of x. So this graph is my f of x. So that graph is my f of x. That's my regular one. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out, well, what's my domain and what's my range of that function. Remember, domain is all my x values, range is all my y values. My domain of this function, you guys can see, is negative infinity to positive infinity. The reason I know that is, you look at those, they have arrows on the end. They go infinitely long forever. So we know they're going on forever, so there's negative infinity to positive infinity. Now my range, that's my y values. Now if you look, that doesn't go on forever. The lowest number that I have for my y's is -3. My highest number is 1. All right, well now really back to what we really are looking at, the heart of this problem, or this this chapter, this section is graphing this problem without actually needing to know the function. So really we need to find 3 good points at least, and there's 3 good points here. Really I could graph this using just those 2 points, but just to make it perfect, I'm going to graph these 3 points. I'm going to pick those points. Those are my standard, my parent function points there. So we look at my 3 points that we have. We have -1, -3, we have 0, -1, and we have 1, 1. Now going back to our rules of functions, looking over here, this is on the outside. So is that affecting my x's or my y's? Well, we know what it's going to affect. It's going to affect our y values. And what's happening to this is it's going to multiply it by 3. So it's going to be a vertical stretch of 3. So really all I need to do now is multiply each of my y values by 3. So we get -9, -3, 3. And now let's graph each of those points to actually show what the graph is going to look like. So my new points, remember, my x's did not change, but my y's did. These are my new points here. So we're going to go to -1, -9. We're going to go to 0, -3. And then we're going to go to 1, 3. You guys can see that when I connect these dots here, connect those, connect there, and then what happens after those? Well, this goes to the left infinitely long, and this goes to the right infinitely long. So all you have to do is you look at a couple points from your graph and graph those. This is how affecting our f of x. So again, let's do another example to show you what I mean. So first things first, I'm going to look at my f of x problem here, and I'm going to figure out what my domain and my range are. So my domain and my range. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the last problem because I need to find out what my domain and my range of my new changed function is. Well, my domain of this function doesn't change. My x's are still negative infinity to positive infinity. Those are still going on forever. My range, however, it has changed. My lowest number that I can go to now is -9. My highest number I can go to now is 3. Now I want you guys to look at my ranges. What happened to them? Well, if you look, my range is really multiplied by 3 there. They multiplied by that 3. I just kind of may have coincidentally worked out. Not really. All right, so my domain in this problem here. My domain, all my x values and going. Again, there's arrows on that W looking graph. That means it goes on infinitely long. My range, however, I have a lowest number that I can go to. I can only go down to -4, but I can go infinitely long up. So it's -4 to infinity. All right, let's pick our x's here. Now it looks like we're going to need our points. This is a good point, this is a good point, this is a good point. But I'm going to need to know what my slope is going up here. So I'm going to use that one. Actually, let's just use our endpoints here. No, we'll go that one. That one looked good, and we'll go with this point right there. So those points are, now I decided to change my last one on the left there. You'll see why in a little bit here, but now these are my 5 points that I used. So now we have to look at is what's happening, what's changing. Well, there's a 2 there. Is it affecting the y or the x's? Well, it's on the inside. So we know it's affecting the x values. And what's going to happen? Well, it's the opposite of what's going on there because it's that horizontal, and you have to think opposite. It's going to be a horizontal shrink. So really, we're going to divide by 2. That's why I changed my x value to -6 instead of -7 there. So we're really going to be -3, -2, 0, 1, and 2. Now we have our new x's and we have our new y's, so let's graph those pieces there, and I'll graph those. But you guys can see this got squished, so the w really got squished. Well, now let's look at our domain of this. Did our domain change? No, our domain stayed the same. We can still go from -infinity to infinity. Did our range change? Again, no it didn't, because our y values did not get stretched or shrunk, so or moved up or down, so it's going to stay the same. So in this case, because it's going on forever, infinitely left or right, everything stayed the same. Let's look at one where they don't go infinitely long forever. So I'm going to change this problem quick. Instead of having this purple line that we have up here, I'm going to change it so we get one that stops at 2 places. So one where my lines look like that. Now notice I don't have arrows on the end of that. So what does that mean? That means that we stop. We don't go on infinitely long forever. So let's find the points that we should use. Well, really we should start with our endpoints there, right? Don't you think? Endpoints should be our 2 starting points. And then I'm going to use these other 2 points. So I only have 2 points that are real, or 4 points that are really being used. And those points are going to be, so I'm going to use -8, 0, -2, -3, 2, -3, and 5, 0. Now we have to go look at what's happening in our graph. So we know there's a 2 on the outside and there's a negative on the inside. Remember, the negative on the inside is going to affect our x values. So I'm going to multiply each of these by -1. So really we're going to end up with 8, 2, -2, -5. This 2, that's going to affect my y values, and I'm going to multiply by 2. So multiply, because it's on the outside, we're going to do the actual piece. Should be a vertical stretch. And my x's should be a reflection about the y-axis. So multiply by 2, -6, -6, 0. Now I'm going to graph each of those outside points. So these are my new points. Let's graph those. If you guys take a look, you guys can notice that they got flipped about the y-axis. The part that's longer, that's stretched further, is now on the right side versus the beginning where it was on the left. Well, now we did forget to go back and do the domain and range. So let's go do our domain and range of these, because this is where it's going to get different. So our domain, we don't go on infinitely forever on this one. The furthest we go on this is -8. And the furthest we go to the right on this one is 5. So our domain is -8, 5. Our range, that's going to be from -3, and the highest we go is 0. Now our new graph down here, our domain and range are going to be much different. So for our domain here, we're actually going to get it to be -5, 8. I want you to look. Our domain and our range, our domains from our graphs kind of flip-flopped. That was that negative on the inside. That's what happened there. Our range on the outside is now going to be -6, 0. And that's at 2. It multiplied them by 2. So if you guys look at this, all we're doing is we're changing our functions without actually needing to actually have a function there. Just given the graph, we're changing our functions. So that's all we're going to talk about in this video. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Make sure you guys check out the next video, which is going to talk about writing the function given what happens to the graph.